The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this episode are that of the guest and host and do not necessarily reflect the values of sponsors or other associated organizations. Welcome to the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. I am your host, Bobby Williams. As always, subscribe to the show so you get notified every episode that comes out. Happy New Year! As the old saying goes, new year, new Parental Compass episode. Each year is like a venture unto the unknown. And for children, this can be very anxiety producing. Anxiety is a consistent issue children deal with. Well, today we are talking about how to recognize signs of anxiety in children and how to help them build coping tools to become more resilient, along with a lot more. It is a special episode today because our guest is none other than the boss lady herself, Shelly Willis. Shelly is a parenting coach, parenting trainer, and executive director of Family Education and Support Services. You can learn more about Shelly and her agency's work by going to familyess.org. First episode of the new year. Let's talk about supporting children with anxiety.
Shelly Willis, Executive Director of Family Education and Support Services. We're navigating through our 25th year and super happy to be here, Bobby. Good to see you again.
We're all dealing with anxiety on some level. I think the challenge is, how do you manage that anxiety within yourself? Are there any just basic tools that can help get you started?
Yeah, there are. It's truly the investment of self-care. Kids deserve to have adults who are in a good space, so we really need to take care of ourselves in order to be there for kids. Whether it's going for a walk or finding a trusted person to talk with, or joining a support group or parenting class so that you know you're not alone and you're learning more skills that help you be the parent or caregiver you want to be.
What's tough about children, especially young children, is they don't always have the words to say, hey, I'm feeling really anxious right now. What are warning signs? Like, how can you tell if a child is really suffering from anxiety?
It's a great question. And you're right, they may not have the words, but they do have a way to communicate. When babies aren't sleeping or they're sleeping quite a bit, they're not eating or they're eating too much. Infants, toddlers, 3-year-olds may regress in their progression. So they may go back to having tantrums or back to thumb sucking when they've already moved past it. Similar with potty training, they might have mastered it and now they go back. Regression is an easy sign, a clue for anxiety.
Are there any particular times that are worse for anxiety, like when a child turns 3, it flares up, or anything like that?
There is a standard around 9 months. Infants tend to show more separation anxiety, but really it's dependent on the adult's situation. The better we take care of ourselves and can be there for kids, the stronger the kids are going to be able to cope with the transitions that constantly occur in their world.
Children in general are just going to be anxious sometimes, but what's the difference between just an anxious child and a child that really has a problem with anxiety?
The people that know that kid best, their parents or caregivers, are going to see them almost immediately. But it is excessive behavior that goes on for a duration of time, may be an indication that it's time to seek out additional support. When it's a bit mild and just beginning, you're talking with the child, you're asking them about what they're doing to cope with the stress and anxiety and giving them some ideas to help navigate through it. But if it's pervasive, then it's time to maybe seek out support at school or in the community. And our communities have amazing resources to tap into, both for the kids and for the adults.
Okay, but why are they anxious? What do you think is fueling their anxiety?
In our world today, we have unprecedented access to technology that kids have not been exposed to in the past. Some kids may have seen animals pass away, for example, but now we can see it on TV over and over again in some very violent ways. And when adults are stressed, that can transition to kids. They feel the same anxiety that adults may feel through an election, for example, or through community issues that may be happening or family issues. That all gets passed through. Even though we try to shield our kids from this, they sense it. I mean, they know us and we know them.
It's something that comes up a lot on the show is that energy is just infectious.
We tend to reflect the energy that we are marinating in. So we do want to keep it positive. And there is such a thing as age appropriate truth. It's unfair to kids to be aware of some of the adult issues that we are facing. Kids shouldn't know that the power bill is a struggle for us this month or whatever, but they do need to know that we as parents, as adults, we do have some tough times, and that we take steps to help ourselves feel better and do better. So tapping into local resources. And I just have to say, I think attending a parenting class is something good parents do. It's not, there's a stigma around it sometimes that if you're attending parenting, that you might be broken in some way. But I think it's just the opposite. It's something you would do because you want to be an even better parent to your kids. Ask for help, support.
Looking back on my life, like school was always a big anxiety trigger. And you think about children, they grow up with you, you're around them, and then they have to get out in the world and be in these social situations. So school can often be a big trigger, but how do you help them navigate that?
Well, just like for us, work can also be anxiety driven. So what do we do as adults? We build coping mechanisms to help us navigate through the tough times. Sometimes school is seen as a sanctuary for kids, a safe place, and it's all about setting up those protective factors and then helping give kids the resilience tools they need to navigate through the tough times.
So what does it mean? What are protective factors?
At Family Education and Support Services, we are dedicated to helping adults zone in on protective factors for the needs of the kids in their care. So, learning how to parent when things get tough or when things are going well, and helping kids navigate the tough times. So, parenting skill building is always a great protective factor. Understanding child development and what's the next stage? What are we going to be expecting? When do toddler tantrums happen and when do they go away? And what can I expect? And what should I be expecting from this age or developmental transition? Having social support systems and someone to call on during the tough times, and having concrete support, having diapers when you need them, and hygiene items and transportation. All of those things help decrease the stress in a home and are considered protective factors.
So we have these protective factors for us as adults. The more confident you are in your parenting, the more resources that are available. Are there ways you can build protective factors for the children while they're at school? Is it like you go have a conversation with the teacher about your child's anxiety, or what can you do to build up more support for them?
The secret weapon is really helping kids build coping mechanisms and pro-social activities. The more we can engage kids in activities where they are connecting to other kids who are successfully navigating challenges, the better off the kids are going to be. And that could be anything from sports to music class to chess clubs to Pokemon card playing, anything that is in their interest. Also, talking with school representatives, so para-educators, teachers, school counselors, whoever the child might find an accessible, safe person to ensure they have a go-to safety at the school. And then talking through what the issues might be and helping them navigate the coping mechanisms that we're going to get them over whatever that burden or challenge is.
This has come up multiple times on this show, but I think it stands true that one thing children really want is just positive adult attention. And if they get a little extra attention, it means a lot to them.
It's so true. There's no greater reward than time with a favorite adult.
On one hand, you don't want your child to suffer. You don't want them to experience pain. But then on the other hand, just living and existing in the world is inherently painful.
Mhm.
So, how do you balance this idea of protecting your child versus pushing them out into the world?
Gosh, no adult wants to see a child in pain. It's so hard to see your kid be sad or feeling anxiety. On the other hand, when you are able to help them successfully navigate through that, there is a sense of agency and empowerment that kicks in that's going to help them through the rest of their life. If you can find ways to help them cope and navigate through that challenge, it truly will begin to build a coping mechanism they'll be using forever.
So, is the idea we're having conversations with our children about what's bothering them? Can we teach them to meditate or something? How do we engage with them to help them work through anxiety?
I wish I could tell you there's one answer. And if you just do this one thing, it's going to make the biggest difference in the world. But every kid is so unique. And so their coping skills will look very different. For some, it's going to be talking with them and listening to the challenges and then giving them the coping skills they need or some ideas to try. If it's a concern about a kid they might run into at school, talking through what that could look like and where would they go for a safe answer when they do feel concerned. For others, it's going to be finding a quiet space where they can just retreat a little bit from societal pressures and read a book or take a break. And for some, it may be staying home or graduating the time that they have in social situations so that they are not feeling that same high level of pressure and then integrating back in. But collaborating on an answer that meets that kid's need is the priority.
What do you think are some of the misconceptions around anxiety?
You know, it's not anxiety doesn't mean that you are mentally ill or that you are cognitively slow. Everybody navigates anxiety in some way at some level. Driving to the stores makes me anxious. Trying to see if my credit card's going to go through makes me anxious. Stop lights can make me anxious. There are all kinds of triggers for us, and they look different in every person. But it is empowering when you navigate through that challenge and you know you can do it again and again and again. These are the coping skills we're trying to build with our kids so that as life's challenges hit them, they will be tenacious and continue moving forward. And when it gets too big, have the confidence to ask for support when needed.
It seems like a lot of this is just about getting that internal voice in your head to feel like I can do it. And so how do we shape that voice to be in our children of they just have that feeling like they know they can get through something. Can you think of any just examples where a child was anxious and the parents or whoever helped them to power through it and make the situation better?
I can. And you know, from birth to 3 years of age, we're downloading the software system that operates for them for the rest of their life. So embedding that I think I can concept is so important as early as possible. A few months ago, I was in a grocery store, a Safeway, where I do a lot of my parenting research. And I saw a dad who had this 2-year-old who was having a tantrum. He was screaming, his face was red, his arms were flailing. I mean, he wasn't having whatever was expected of him. And the dad was just calmly moving through, getting him a new cart and moving through the store. And I was curious how this was going to play out. So I started following him, kind of stalking him through the store just to see what would happen. If it had been me, I would second guess taking a tour through the store with a kid who was in that frame of mind. But he was moving forward, and I was looking forward to see how that played out. So he went into the first section, which was produce, and the child kicked out and bananas went flying. And I watched the dad to see what would happen. And he took a heavy breath and he said, "It's okay, Mikey, we're going to get through this." And he picked up the bananas and he kept going. Mikey, however, continued to scream. And when the dad went to the next aisle, he kicked out and Cheerios boxes went flying. And now I look over at the dad, sure that he's going to turn about and leave. He didn't. He again took a heavy breath and he said, "It's okay, Mikey. It's okay. We're going to get through this." And this time, when he went through the aisle, Mikey was in the middle of the aisle and couldn't reach the sides. And so now he was even madder and screaming louder. But dad went through every aisle in the store. I know because I was behind him, and we ended up at the checkout aisle together. And at this point, Mikey was calmer. And I said to the dad, "Congratulations, you made it through the store successfully. Well done. Good parenting." And Mikey seems to be doing fine. And he looks at me and he laughs and he goes, "My name's Mikey. This is Timmy." And he introduced me to his son, Timmy. It was so funny because he was talking to himself through the whole store. He had in his brain, "I can do it" attitude. He had a cheerleader in his brain. Somebody gave that to him. Wouldn't that be great if we could do that for every kid?
That that is a powerful story for sure.
It was
You were mentioning earlier how you were speaking with a client earlier today. Tell me about that.
Oh, I was talking with a family who was going through a divorce, and it was stressful for the mom and the dad and the child. And one of their coping mechanisms was to go by the pound and pet animals that hadn't been petted. So they every other day, whether the child was with mom or dad, they would take a tour through the animal shelter and pet cats or dogs or whatever was available and have some family time. They stepped up their family time together to kind of reassure everybody it was going to be okay. It was a great coping mechanism. It was good for this family.
I love that. For me, my dog is just so calming, or it's like just petting the dog is just super relaxing. I feel like every family should get some kind of pet like that.
You know, coping skills look different for every person. For some people, that may be anxiety-ridden activity,
Mhm.
but for this family, it worked well.
Do you have any other thoughts or ideas that we haven't talked about here that you want to share with the audience?
I would just encourage you to invest in your own health and well-being because kids deserve to have adult caregivers who are in a good space. And when we're stressed out, we don't always act or say what we hope we would. And if you take care of you, then your kids are going to have a better you to reach out to when they're under stress. I know that's easier to say than to do, but role modeling is really the best gift you can give your child.
Hmm, I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Shelly.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Shelly Willis. Always a wealth of information. I really appreciate you. From all of us here at Family Education and Support Services, we are wishing you a happy, healthy, and successful 2025. Let's make it a good one. I'm Bobby Williams. I'm out, y'all. Peace.